I'm sure many of our viewers would think this is like an Uber-type service for motorcycles, but is that exactly what you're offering?
So it's quite different. The Uber model has worked very well across the developed world. What we're seeing in Nigeria and a lot of other African countries is there's a need that needs to be met, mainly because of the kind of traffic that we have and the infrastructure challenges.
You can say that again. So this is like a traffic solution.
So it's like a traffic solution, so to speak. There's also a big drive from Max as far as empowerment is concerned. So if you walk around the streets of Lagos, you see a lot of young people who walk around, they have a backpack, and you're like, oh, where are they going? The reality is that they sleep where they get to that night. So there's a massive homelessness problem and an inability for people to actually make ends meet. What we're doing is getting a lot of these people off the streets, working with organizations like Pro Wheels to actually train them, get them properly certified. We work with a company like Bajaj to provide motorcycles and help them get financing through banks like a couple other partners, and essentially stabilize them so that they have the ability within the next 3 months to be able to find a place to take care of themselves and provide for their families and continue to grow.
So you've been operating for about a year now, I think?
So we've actually done this for about 2 years.
Okay, so tell us how far has this come?
Okay, so in 2015, we started out a pilot in Ikeja, predominantly doing delivery. It was a massive learning opportunity. Oh, they will arrest your bike here, fighting last month, fighting these different organizations. And then we went from just doing delivery to, in 2017, saying, look, we want to do transportation. And January, we did some work. 2016, we did some work on that. But you're never really sure about how will the political climate take it, how would regulation take it. And we're just like, look, we're just going to have to go head on and fight the battles as they come and win those battles. So June of 2017, we officially went live. Did a lot of marketing in like the Yaba area, Unilag.
So what has been the adoption like so far?
So it's massive. We're doing close to 3,000 orders a day, rides a day.
But that's like a service to businesses, right?
No. We have.
When you say orders?
So when I say orders, I actually mean rides.
Oh, okay.
We're doing just under 3,000 rides a day within Lagos. We have employed about 300 drivers so far, and that number is scaling. So now what we're actually seeing is about 20 new riders every day. But like obviously you have to pump the brakes and make sure that these guys are getting the right training, etc., so that they can actually work and deliver long-term value.
At the start of the show, I read out that statistics: 15 million commercial motorcycle taxi transports people across Africa. So it does sound like a huge opportunity, but I still get the sense that it's really a localized opportunity where you're looking at, like you mentioned, maybe the Yaba area, the VI Ikoyi area, and kind of creating a service that is for that area. Is that how it works? Because potentially, I guess it would be difficult to be providing that kind of service and transporting people, for instance, from the mainland to the island. So
what's interesting is that that's predominantly what we actually do, from the mainland to the island and vice versa. The normal Okadas you see in Lagos, all those small engine ones, 110cc, 120cc, we don't use those. Mainly because that doesn't solve the problem that we want. One, they're not stable enough. If a big vehicle,
they're not even authorized to.
They're not even authorized exactly to get on the highway.
Long routes,
so if a big vehicle drives by, it like wobbles. That is scary, right? So we don't mess with those kind of bikes. What we do is we partner with manufacturers who produce those big engine motorcycles. So 220cc's, 250cc's, 400cc's. I mean, I actually drive a motorcycle, 900cc's, Yamaha. But what we've done is to make sure that we get those high-quality motorcycles that are stable, have the right amount of torque to be able to carry passengers, and are comfortable. As part of that, we're actually organizing something called the Max Lagos Tour, where we take people to key sites. So the Three Elders, the Lekki Conservation Center, Niket Gallery, all that. You see Lagos on the back of a motorcycle. And the feedback we've had so far is that it's extremely comfortable because we're investing essentially in the right motorcycles for us.
I can just imagine that this service will be a lifesaver in that rush hour traffic that we typically experience every day.
Exactly.
And I imagine that's where the big opportunity is.
Yes, exactly.
But what's the pricing like? Compared to, say, if I was going to take a bus, obviously it would be higher.
Yeah, so it's higher. Taking a bus doesn't really compare. One, because this is a lot safer than taking the danfo. We've actually banned a couple of our staff from getting in danfos because there's no regulation around them. So the brake fails. So in fact, one of our staff was in a danfo 3 days ago, and the brake failed. and she and one other person were the only people who could actually come out of the bus on their own feet.
Wow.
Everybody was rushed off to a hospital. So danfos have very poor regulation. The braking systems, there's no guarantee in terms of what the vehicles can do. With our motorcycles, there's inspections done every evening on every motorcycle that works on a platform across the city. Inspections are also done every morning to make sure that you have best-in-class quality at every single point in time. It's more expensive, though, than that, but it's cheaper than, say, an Uber service or a Taxify service because we don't actually charge you for time. Because our philosophy is, look, we're providing a motorcycle service that beats traffic. So why are we charging for time? Let's just focus on the distance that we actually cover. So let's say going from Victoria Island to Yaba could cost you 700, 800 naira. No matter if it's rush hour or not rush hour, because the reality is that it's still taking about the same time. The drivers don't move beyond 75 kilometers per hour, right? And you have to say, hey, faster, faster for them to actually get to that point. Right. Predominantly, they're moving at like about 40, 50 kilometers per hour because it's a big
And of course, I imagine there's still that feedback mechanism that we would see on this type of service.
So on every trip, we're actually tracking driver performance and safety. So we have something called the safety score. And what we do is we're tracking how hard does the driver brake, how quickly do they accelerate, what's the top speed, and a few other things. And we use that together to figure out who is a safe enough driver. Because the thing is, when you track all those kinds of things, you can quickly measure things like what is the driver's ability to anticipate what is in front of him. Because typically you're driving in traffic. So you don't want him to be jerking the bike because that's not comfortable for the customer. And you also don't want him to be overspeeding because he can get somebody killed. So luckily, I mean, we've maintained very high safety standards across board, and we've been able to ensure that we don't have this kind of problems on our platform.
And I imagine that you're looking to scale this, but the big question is, to what extent will regulation stop that? I mean, when you look at the environment right now, I mean, for instance, Lagos, there is some regulation on where bikes can go.
Yeah.
To what extent do you think that could stifle your growth?
I mean, so the thing is, it's a work in progress. When we first started out, nobody thought it was possible. Since we started, we've had like 2 other companies who've come in and are actually actively copying the model, and they're literally waiting to see, okay, if Max goes here, then they come. If Max goes here, then they come. If Max goes here, then they come. So essentially, I'm proud to say that we're leading that drive in this space. The reality is that part of our work is going to continue to be government engagement. So we work a lot with like the Okada unions, work a lot with the NURTW, work a lot with the local government task forces, and with the state governments, and even at the federal level. So even beyond just motorcycles, we've started to do research and make investments in electric vehicles, so electric motorcycles, electric cars, and cars that essentially work with a mixed combustion engine where you have where you can switch between electricity and fuel and like a fuel engine, which